Before I tell you the story, I want you to imagine something. Imagine loving someone so deeply that you ignore every red flag because you truly believe they'd never hurt you. Imagine trusting your best friend, the one who laughed with you, cried with you, and promised she'd always have your back. Now imagine finding out they were both lying to you at the same time. That's where my story starts. It didn't happen all at once. It wasn't some dramatic movie moment where I walked in on them. No, it happened slowly, quietly, almost like the universe was whispering. Pay attention. There were signs, tiny things that didn't make sense. My boyfriend getting distant, then overly sweet. My best friend knowing things she shouldn't. Them both acting weird when we were all in the same room. But I brushed it off because that's what you do when you care about people. You give them the benefit of the doubt. I should have trusted my gut. The truth didn't slap me in the face all at once. It dripped in, piece by piece, until it became impossible to ignore. And the craziest part? It wasn't just the betrayal, it was the way he talked about me behind my back. The names he called me, the things he said, things I never thought someone I loved could ever say. He had a nickname for me, a nickname he used when talking to my so-called best friend. He called me the most. And trust me, what followed those words was nothing like a compliment. I didn't find out because someone told me. I didn't find out because they felt guilty. I found out because the truth has a way of showing up no matter how deep someone tries to bury it. And when it finally hit me, when everything snapped into place, I realized I had been living in a story where I was the only one who didn't know what was really happening. But here's the thing. What they didn't expect was how I'd react. What they didn't expect was that I wasn't going to break. And what happened next? Let's just say it turned everything upside down for them, not for me. So let me tell you exactly how I found out, and why that stupid nickname, the most, turned out to be the beginning of their downfall, not mine. Let me take you back to how this whole mess started. His name was Jake, and we'd been together for 2.5 years. 2.5 years of what I thought was a solid, loving relationship. We met through mutual friends at a barbecue, one of those warm summer nights where everything just feels right, you know? He had this smile that made me feel safe, and we clicked immediately. Within 3 months, we were officially together, and within 6 months, I was convinced he was the one. Jake wasn't perfect, but I didn't need perfect. He was attentive when it mattered, he made me laugh, and most importantly, he made me feel seen. Or at least, that's what I thought. We had our routines, Sunday morning coffee runs, Netflix binges on Wednesday nights, weekend hikes when the weather was nice. My friends loved him. My family loved him. Everything was exactly how I'd always imagined a relationship should be. And then there was Maya, my best friend since college. We'd been through everything together, breakups, job losses, family drama, you name it. She was the kind of friend who'd show up at your door at midnight with ice cream when you were crying. The kind who'd hype you up before a big presentation. The kind you trust with your life. Maya and Jake met about 6 months into our relationship. I remember being so excited to introduce them because these were my 2 favorite people, and I wanted them to get along. And they did. Maybe a little too well, but I didn't see it then. I was just happy that my boyfriend and my best friend could be in the same room without it being awkward. We became this little trio. Movie nights at my place, double dates when Maya was seeing someone, group hangouts with other friends. Looking back now, I can see how carefully they must have planned it all. How they must have laughed at how clueless I was. But back then, I felt lucky. I felt like I had the best of both worlds, a loving boyfriend and a loyal best friend. What I didn't know was that I was actually living in a triangle where I was the only one who didn't know the shape had changed. The changes started small. So small that I told myself I was being paranoid. It was about 8 months ago when I first noticed Jake getting different. Not bad different, just different. He'd check his phone more often, and when I'd glance over, he'd tilt it away slightly. Not dramatically, just enough that I couldn't see the screen. When I asked who he was texting, he'd say just work stuff, or the guys, and change the subject. Then there were the late nights. Jake worked in marketing, and sure, sometimes campaigns ran late. but it went from occasional to constant. 3. 4 nights a week he'd text me, saying he had to stay late at the office. When he'd finally come home, he'd be exhausted, too exhausted to talk, too exhausted to do anything but crash on the couch. But here's the weird part. Sometimes he'd come home wired. Happy. Energetic. Like he'd just had the best day of his life. And when I'd ask what happened at work to put him in such a good mood, he'd shrug and say nothing special, just a productive day. The inconsistency should have been my first real clue. Maya started acting strange too, but in a different way. She became overly interested in my relationship. Like, more than usual. She'd ask me detailed questions about Jake, where he was, what he was doing, if we'd had any fights lately. At first, I thought she was just being a good friend, checking in on me. But the questions felt pointed, specific. And then there were the times she'd know things she shouldn't know. Little things. Like, I'd mentioned that Jake and I were thinking about going to this new restaurant, and she'd say, "Oh yeah, he mentioned that place." But I hadn't told her yet, and Jake supposedly hadn't talked to her. When I'd bring it up, she'd backtrack quickly, say she must have seen it on social media or something. The group hangouts became more uncomfortable. I'd catch these looks between them, quick glances that lasted half a second too long. Or they'd both laugh at something, and when I'd ask what was funny, they'd say nothing in unison. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and people stop talking? It started feeling like that, except the room was my own relationship and my own friendship. Jake became more critical too. Little comments about my appearance, my habits, my career. Nothing outright mean, just enough to make me second-guess myself. "Are you really wearing that?" Or, "Maybe you should go to the gym more." Or, "Sarah from my office got promoted because she's more assertive. Maybe you should try that." Comments wrapped in concern but dripping with judgment. And Maya, she started being available for Jake in ways that felt off. If he needed something and I was busy, she'd volunteer to help. She'd offer to drop things off at his place. She'd suggest we all hang out. But then conveniently, I'd have work or an obligation, and it would just be them. When I'd express even the slightest discomfort, she'd act offended. "He's your boyfriend, and I'm your best friend. Are you saying you don't trust us?" That question, that's the weapon manipulative people use. They make you feel crazy for having normal, rational concerns. So I backed off. I swallowed my doubts. I told myself I was being insecure and paranoid. I convinced myself that if I just trusted them more, everything would be fine. But my gut wouldn't shut up. It kept screaming that something was wrong. You know that feeling in your stomach, that tight, anxious knot that won't go away no matter how many times you try to rationalize it? That's what I lived with for months. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. with this overwhelming sense of dread, and I couldn't even explain why. I started noticing the perfume. Jake would come home smelling different sometimes. Not like another woman's perfume exactly, more subtle than that. Like he'd been somewhere that wasn't the office. When I mentioned it once, he got defensive. Told me I was imagining things. Told me maybe I should talk to someone about my anxiety. That's another tactic, by the way. When someone is lying to you, they'll often try to make you question your own sanity. They'll suggest that you're the problem, that you're too anxious, too jealous, too insecure. And if you're not careful, you'll believe them. I almost did. There was one night that changed everything. It was a Thursday. I remember because we always did date night on Thursdays. But Jake canceled last minute, said he had a work emergency. I was disappointed but understanding. I decided to have a self-care night instead. Face mask, wine, trashy TV, the whole thing. Around 9 p.m., I texted Maya to vent about the canceled plans. She didn't respond. That wasn't unusual. Maya wasn't always glued to her phone. But something made me check her Instagram story. And there it was. A photo of a glass of wine and what looked like a restaurant table. The caption? Impromptu dinner out. My heart started pounding. I zoomed in on the photo, analyzing every pixel. The restaurant looked upscale. There was a second glass of wine barely visible in the corner of the frame. And in the reflection of her wine glass, if you looked really carefully, You could see the shadow of someone sitting across from her. I told myself I was being crazy. Plenty of people go out to dinner on Thursday nights. But I couldn't shake the feeling. So I did something I'm not proud of. I drove by Jake's office. His car wasn't there. The building was dark. There was no work emergency. My hands were shaking as I drove home. I wanted to call him, to demand to know where he really was, but something stopped me. Some instinct told me that if I confronted him without proof, he'd just lie his way out of it, and I'd be back to square one, only now I'd look like the crazy, jealous girlfriend. That night marked the beginning of my investigation. I know how that sounds, like I was some paranoid stalker. But when you love someone, when you've built a life with them, you deserve to know the truth. You deserve to know if the person you're planning a future with is making a fool of you. I started paying closer attention to everything. I noticed that Jake's late work nights often coincided with Maya being mysteriously unavailable. I noticed that he'd stopped posting about us on social media, something he used to do all the time. Our couple photos disappeared from his Instagram grid. When I asked about it, he said he was trying to be more private. Not everything needs to be online, he said. Which would be fine, except he was still posting, just not about me. I checked our shared calendar. Jake had been adding more and more work events that I wasn't invited to. When I asked if I could come to the next office happy hour, he made excuses. Said it was just for employees. Said I'd be bored. Said spouses weren't invited. But I'd met his coworkers before. I'd been to events before. Why was I suddenly excluded? Maya started canceling our plans more frequently. She'd always have a reason: work stress, family obligations, feeling under the weather. But then I'd see her active on social media, clearly not sick, clearly not overwhelmed. Once, she canceled our brunch plans because she said she had a work deadline. 2 hours later, I saw she posted a photo from a hiking trail. When I confronted her gently, asking if she'd finished her work early, she got snippy. Told me she needed to clear her head. Told me I was being clingy. That word, clingy. It's funny how people use that word to make you feel bad for caring, for wanting to spend time with your supposed best friend, for expecting someone to keep their commitments. I started testing them. Small tests at first. I'd tell Jake something personal, something I'd only told him, and then wait to see if Maya somehow knew about it. Sure enough, she'd bring it up casually in conversation, as if I'd told her. When I'd say, "I don't remember telling you that," she'd act confused, insist that I had. I did the same with Maya. I'd tell her something about my relationship with Jake, a fight we'd had, a concern I had, and watch to see if his behavior changed. It did. He'd suddenly be extra affectionate after I'd told Maya I felt like we were drifting apart. He'd surprised me with flowers after I'd told Maya I was feeling unappreciated. It was like he had a direct line to my insecurities, and he was using them to manipulate me. The phone became my biggest clue. Jake had always been relatively open with his phone. Not careless, but not secretive either. But suddenly, it was face down on every surface. It had a passcode that he changed regularly. He started taking it with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. When it would buzz with a notification, he'd grab it immediately, check it, and then put it away without mentioning who it was. One night, his phone buzzed while he was in the shower. It was sitting on the nightstand, and I stared at it, my heart racing. I knew his passcode, or at least, I knew what it used to be. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling. I typed in the old code. Incorrect. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect. I tried my birthday. Incorrect. But then I tried something else. Maya's birthday. And it unlocked. My stomach dropped. Why would his passcode be Maya's birthday? There could be innocent explanations, right? Maybe it was just a random number. But deep down I knew. That knot in my stomach pulled tighter. I didn't have time to look through anything. I heard the shower turn off. I put the phone down exactly where it had been and pretended to be scrolling through my own phone. Jake came out, grabbed his phone immediately, and I watched as he smiled at something on the screen. "What's so funny?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Nothing," he said, putting the phone in his pocket. "Just a meme from the group chat." But he wasn't in any group chats that I knew of. At least, not any that he told me about. The truth came out 3 weeks later, and it wasn't because someone finally told me. It wasn't because they felt guilty. It was because I created an opportunity, and they walked right into it. I told Jake I had to go out of town for the weekend for a work conference. It was a complete lie. There was no conference. But I needed to see what would happen if they thought I was gone. I needed to know if my suspicions were just paranoid delusions or if I was actually living in a nightmare. Jake's reaction when I told him should have been my confirmation. He didn't seem disappointed that I'd be gone. He seemed relieved. "That's great, babe," he said, kissing my forehead. "You'll do amazing. Don't worry about anything here. I'll hold down the fort." I told Maya too. Her reaction was similar. "Oh, that's this weekend? Well, I guess I'll just binge-watch shows alone." But there was something in her voice, something almost excited. That Friday afternoon, I packed a bag, kissed Jake goodbye, and drove away like I was heading to the airport. But instead, I drove to my sister's house across town. She knew what I was doing, and she thought I was crazy, but she supported me anyway. "If they're cheating, you need to know," she said. "And if they're not, you can finally put this to rest." I waited. I sat in my sister's living room, staring at my phone, wondering what I was even hoping to find. Part of me wanted to be wrong. Part of me wanted to drive home and discover that Jake was just having a quiet night in, that Maya was really watching TV alone, that I'd been paranoid for nothing. But I wasn't wrong. Around 7 p.m., I got a notification. Jake had posted on his private Instagram story, the one that I could see because we followed each other. It was a photo of a pizza and a beer with the caption, "Bachelor Weekend." My blood ran cold. He thought I was gone, so he was celebrating. Then I did something I'd been avoiding for weeks. I created a fake Instagram account. I know it sounds unhinged, but I was desperate. I used a random name, a generic profile picture, and I requested to follow both Jake and Maya. Maya accepted within an hour. Jake took longer, but eventually he accepted too. And that's when I saw it. Maya's story from earlier that evening, the one I couldn't see from my real account because she'd hidden it from me. It was a photo of her getting ready, makeup half done, with the caption, "Finally a fun Friday night." My heart was racing. I waited. I watched. And then, around 8:30 p.m., Jake posted another story. It was a photo taken from inside a car, a photo of the road ahead with the caption, "On my way to a good night." I recognized that road. It was the road that led to Maya's apartment. I couldn't breathe. I actually couldn't catch my breath. My sister came running into the room because I must have made some kind of sound, maybe a gasp, maybe a sob, I don't even know. She looked at my phone, looked at my face, and said, "We're going over there." "No," I said. "Not yet. I need to see more. I need proof." So we waited. My sister ordered takeout that I couldn't eat. I just sat there, refreshing social media, feeling like I was watching my entire life fall apart in real time. Around 10 p.m., Jake posted a photo. It was dark, clearly taken inside somewhere, and it was just a close-up of 2 glasses of wine touching in a toast. The caption, "To good friends." Good friends. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. But I didn't go over there. Not that night. Because I realized something. If I confronted them now, in the heat of the moment, they'd just deny everything. They'd say they were just hanging out, that I was being crazy, that I was invading their privacy. They'd make me the villain. So I waited until morning. I barely slept. I lay in my sister's guest bed, staring at the ceiling, playing out every conversation we'd ever had. Every moment I'd brushed off my doubts. Every time they'd made me feel like I was the problem. The next morning, I drove home. My sister wanted to come with me, but I said no. This was something I needed to do alone. I got home around 11 a.m. Jake's car was in the driveway. I used my key to let myself in quietly. The house was silent. Too silent. I walked through the living room, the kitchen, and that's when I saw it. Maya's jacket on the back of a chair. Her shoes by the door. Her purse on the counter. My vision went blurry. My hand started shaking. I walked up the stairs, each step feeling like I was walking through quicksand. I could hear voices, low murmurs coming from my bedroom. My bedroom. The bedroom I shared with Jake. I stood outside the door for a moment, my hand on the doorknob, and I thought about turning around. I thought about leaving, packing a bag, and just disappearing. But I didn't. I opened the door. They were in bed. My bed. They weren't doing anything. They were just lying there, talking, laughing. Jake had his arm around her. She was wearing one of his t-shirts. They looked comfortable. They looked like they'd done this 100 times before. The look on their faces when they saw me is something I'll never forget. Pure shock. Pure panic. Pure guilt. What the hell is this? My voice came out calmer than I expected. Cold. Detached. Jake jumped up, scrambling for words. Babe, I can explain. Explain what? I cut him off. Explain why my best friend is in my bed wearing your shirt. Explain why you lied about me being out of town so you could spend the night with her. Maya had tears in her eyes. I'm so sorry, she whispered. We didn't mean for this to happen. That line. We didn't mean for this to happen. Like they'd accidentally tripped and fallen into a months-long affair. Like this was some cosmic accident and not a series of choices they made every single day. But the confrontation in the bedroom wasn't even the worst part. As I scrambled to get dressed, making excuses, talking over each other, I noticed Jake's phone on the nightstand. It was unlocked. He must have been using it before I walked in. I picked it up before he could stop me. Don't, he started, reaching for it, but I stepped back. Don't what? I said, my voice rising now. Don't look at your phone. Don't see what you've been hiding. And that's when I saw it. The messages. Hundreds of them. Months' worth of conversations between Jake and Maya. I scrolled through, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. The messages were disgusting. Romantic messages. Sexual messages. Messages about me. They talked about me constantly, about how to hide their relationship from me, about what lies to tell me, about how oblivious I was. But then I found the messages that broke something inside me. The ones where Jake talked about me with such contempt, such cruelty, that I couldn't even process that this was the same person who'd told me he loved me just yesterday. There it was. The nickname. In a message from 2 months ago, Maya had written, "Is she suspicious?" And Jake had responded, "Nah, the most gullible person I've ever met. She believes everything. It's almost too easy. The most gullible person I've ever met." I scrolled more. There were more. The most annoying girlfriend. She never stops talking. The most clingy person alive. I literally can't have 5 minutes to myself. The most boring person in bed. Thank God I have you now. The most exhausting human. She questions everything but believes all my lies. Each message was like a knife. He'd been calling me the most something, always something cruel, always something designed to tear me down. And Maya, she'd been encouraging it, laughing at it, adding her own commentary. In one message, Maya wrote, "I feel bad sometimes. She really loves you." Jake's response, "The most naive person I know. She'll never find out. And if she does, we'll just deny it. Who's she gonna believe?" I looked up from the phone. They were both staring at me, and they knew. They knew I'd found the worst of it. "The most gullible person you've ever met," I said, my voice shaking. "Is that what you really think of me?" Jake opened his mouth, then closed it. For once, he had no lies prepared. "How long?" I asked. "How long has this been going on?" Maya spoke first, her voice small. 8 months. 8 months. Almost the entire time I'd been feeling like something was wrong. My gut had been screaming at me for 8 months, and I'd ignored it because I trusted them. "Get out," I said quietly. "Let me explain," Jake started. "Get out!" I screamed it this time. "Both of you. Get out of my house. Get out of my life." Maya grabbed her things quickly, tears streaming down her face. "I never meant to hurt you," she said as she rushed past me. "But you did," I said. "Every single day for 8 months you hurt me. You lied to my face. You betrayed me. And you enjoyed it." Jake tried a different approach. "Baby, please. We can work through this. I made a mistake. A mistake. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. A mistake is forgetting to pick up milk. This was a choice. Every text, every lie, every time you called me gullible or annoying or boring, those were choices. And I'm making a choice right now. Get out. He left. They both left. And I stood in my bedroom, the bedroom I'd shared with someone who'd been mocking me behind my back, and I finally let myself break down. But they didn't just leave quietly. Oh no. Over the next few days, they both tried everything to fix what they'd broken. The texts started within an hour of them leaving. Jake, please call me. I need to explain. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. I'd found months of messages. I'd caught them in my bed. What else could it possibly look like? Jake, I love you. I've always loved you. Maya means nothing to me. It was just physical. It didn't mean anything. That one made me laugh. So now he was throwing Maya under the bus. The same Maya he'd been calling his soulmate in their messages. The same Maya he told. I've never felt this way about anyone. Maya's messages were different. She went for the emotional manipulation route. Maya, I'm so sorry. I hate myself. I never wanted to hurt you. You're my best friend. Maya, I know you probably hate me, but please know that none of this was meant to happen. We tried to fight it. For 8 months, while planning secret dates and mocking me in text messages. Maya, Jake pursued me. I should have said no, but he was so persistent. I'm weak. I'm a terrible person. But please don't throw away our friendship over this. I didn't respond to either of them. I blocked Jake's number. I blocked Maya's number. I blocked them on every social media platform. I wanted them erased from my life. But they didn't stop. Jake showed up at my house 2 days later. I was home. I'd called in sick to work because I couldn't function. When I heard the doorbell, I looked through the peephole and saw him standing there with flowers. Flowers. Like this was some minor argument that could be fixed with a bouquet from the grocery store. I opened the door but kept the chain lock on. What do you want? To talk. To explain. To fix this. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept, like he'd been crying. Good. There's nothing to fix, I said. You cheated on me with my best friend for 8 months. You called me gullible, annoying, boring. You mocked me. You made me feel crazy for having gut feelings that were completely correct. What is there to explain? I was an idiot, he said, and now he was crying. I got caught up in something that felt exciting and new, and I didn't think about the consequences. But I love you. I've always loved you. Maya was just a distraction. Does Maya know she was just a distraction? I asked. He didn't answer that. You don't love me, I said. You love the idea of me. You love having someone who believed in you, who supported you, who made your life comfortable. But you didn't love me enough to stay faithful. You didn't respect me enough to tell me the truth. So no, we're not fixing this. We're done. Please, he started, but I closed the door. He stood outside for 20 minutes, ringing the doorbell, knocking, calling my name. I turned on music and ignored him. Eventually, he left. Maya tried a different approach. She reached out to mutual friends, painting herself as the victim. She told them that Jake had manipulated her, that she'd been confused, that she felt terrible. Some of our friends believed her. Some of them told her she was a horrible person and cut her off. The ones who believed her, I cut them off too. If they couldn't see through her lies, they weren't real friends anyway. She also wrote me a letter, an actual, handwritten letter that she left in my mailbox. It was 6 pages long, filled with apologies and excuses and justifications. She talked about how she'd always been jealous of me, how I'd had everything she wanted, how Jake had made her feel special in ways no one else had. The letter ended with, I hope someday you can forgive me. I hope we can be friends again. I miss you. I burned it. Literally. I took it to my backyard, put it in a metal trash can, and lit it on fire. It felt good. Here's what they didn't expect. They thought I'd fall apart. They thought I'd be so devastated, so broken, that I'd either take Jake back or at least wallow in misery for months. They thought they'd shattered me, but I didn't shatter. I got angry, and I got strategic. First, I told everyone. Not in a messy, vindictive way, I simply told the truth. When mutual friends asked what happened, I showed them the screenshots I'd taken of Jake's messages. I didn't editorialize. I didn't exaggerate. I just let Jake's own words speak for themselves. The reaction was swift. Jake's friends were disgusted. His family was ashamed. His coworkers found out. I may have accidentally sent some screenshots to his work email list, and suddenly his reputation at the office took a hit. Turns out, people don't like working with someone who's a proven liar and cheater. Maya's life didn't fare much better. Our friend group fractured. Most of them sided with me, which meant Maya lost her entire social circle. The few who stayed neutral, she resented them for not fully supporting her. But here's the beautiful irony. Jake and Maya tried to make their relationship work. After all, they'd blown up their lives for each other, right? They had to make it worth it. It lasted 3 months. Turns out, a relationship built on lies and betrayal doesn't have a strong foundation. Who knew? They fought constantly. Jake, according to the friends who kept tabs on them, treated Maya the same way he treated me, distant, critical, always looking for something better. And Maya, she became paranoid. If he cheated with her, what was stopping him from cheating on her? They broke up spectacularly. I heard through the grapevine that Maya had found Jake texting another woman. The karma was so poetic it almost made up for everything they'd put me through. But my real revenge wasn't their breakup. It was my glow-up. I threw myself into therapy. I worked through the betrayal, the trust issues, the self-doubt that their comments had created. I realized that their cruelty said everything about them and nothing about me. I wasn't gullible, I was trusting. I wasn't annoying, I was communicative. I wasn't boring, I was authentic. I changed jobs, got a promotion, and started making more money than Jake ever did. I picked up hobbies I'd abandoned during the relationship: painting, hiking, learning guitar. I traveled. I focused on myself. And 6 months after the breakup, I started dating someone new. Someone who actually appreciated me. Someone who never once made me feel like I was too much or not enough. Someone who didn't need the thrill of sneaking around because being with me was enough. I ran into Jake and Maya separately a few months ago. Jake looked like he'd aged 10 years. He tried to make small talk, asked how I was doing, and when I told him I was great, I could see it bothered him. He wanted me to still be hurt. He wanted to know that he still had some power over me. But I'd taken that power back. Maya was worse. She approached me at a coffee shop, tears in her eyes, begging for closure. "I just need to know if you'll ever forgive me," she said. I looked at her for a long moment, and then I said, "I don't forgive you, but I don't think about you anymore. And honestly, that's better than forgiveness. You're just not relevant to my life." She stood there, stunned as I walked away. Looking back now, I can see this whole nightmare differently. Yes, it was painful. Yes, it was one of the worst experiences of my life. But it taught me things I might never have learned otherwise. I learned that my intuition is powerful. Every single time I felt like something was off, I was right. I should have trusted myself sooner. I should have listened to that voice in my head that was screaming for attention. I learned that not everyone who loves you deserves you. Jake probably did love me in his own twisted way, but his love was selfish. It was conditional. It was weak. Real love doesn't need to tear someone down to build itself up. Real love doesn't require lies and secrecy. I learned that some friendships aren't meant to last forever. Maya and I had history, sure, but history doesn't mean loyalty. Time invested doesn't equal trustworthiness. Some people will betray you no matter how much you've done for them, and that says everything about their character and nothing about yours. I learned about red flags. Looking back, they were everywhere. The defensiveness when I asked simple questions. The way they both made me feel crazy for having normal concerns. The inconsistencies in their stories. The way my gut screamed at me for months. I'll never ignore those signs again. But most importantly, I learned about my own strength. Before this happened, I genuinely thought that if Jake ever cheated on me, I'd be destroyed. I thought I needed him. I thought our relationship defined me. But when it actually happened, when I found myself standing in the wreckage of my life, I discovered something amazing. I could rebuild. I could survive. I could thrive. The nickname, the most gullible person, stung at first. It made me question everything about myself. But now I see differently. I wasn't gullible. I was genuine. I gave people the benefit of the doubt because that's who I am. I trusted because I was trustworthy. And refusing to become cynical and suspicious just because two people betrayed me, that's not weakness. That's strength. It's been almost a year since everything fell apart. A year since I discovered that the two people I trusted most in the world were living double lives. A year since I found those messages and that nickname that was designed to humiliate me. And you know what? I'm happy. Genuinely, authentically happy in a way I never was with Jake. I'm dating someone incredible, someone who texts me back immediately, who never makes me question where he is or who he's with, who posts about us proudly on social media, who thinks I'm the most interesting person he's ever met instead of the most annoying. Someone who makes me feel safe instead of anxious. I've reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with during my relationship with Jake. Turns out, I'd been so focused on making Jake happy and maintaining my friendship with Maya that I'd neglected other relationships. Those friends welcomed me back with open arms, and our friendships are stronger now than ever. My career is thriving. Without the emotional drain of a toxic relationship, I have energy to focus on my goals. I got that promotion I'd been working toward. I'm making more money, taking on exciting projects, and actually enjoying my work instead of just going through the motions. I've become the version of myself that I always wanted to be but couldn't quite access when I was constantly worried about whether my boyfriend was lying to me or whether my best friend was secretly judging me. As for Jake and Maya, last I heard, Jake was in another relationship, some woman he met at a bar. I give it 6 months before she discovers what kind of person he really is. Maya moved to a different city, trying to start fresh where people don't know what she did. I hope she's learned from this. I hope she's become a better person. But honestly, it's not my problem anymore. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was accepting that the relationship I thought I had never actually existed. The boyfriend I loved, the one who was sweet and attentive and made me laugh, he was only real about 50% of the time. The other 50%, he was mocking me, lying to me, and actively working to deceive me. The best friend I trusted with my secrets, she was sharing them with my boyfriend and laughing at me behind my back. I had to grieve not just the relationship, but the illusion. I had to accept that I'd been in love with someone who didn't exist, and I trusted someone who was never really my friend. But here's what I want you to take away from my story. If you're reading this and something feels off in your relationship or your friendship, trust that feeling. Your intuition is not your enemy. That little voice in your head that says, something's not right. Listen to it. You're not being paranoid. You're not being jealous. You're not being insecure. You're being smart. Don't let anyone convince you that your valid concerns are character flaws. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for asking questions or wanting transparency. A person who has nothing to hide won't make you feel crazy for seeking the truth. And if you discover betrayal, whether it's from a partner, a friend, or both, know this: you will survive it. It's going to hurt like hell. You're going to have moments where you can't breathe, where you question everything about yourself, where you wonder if you'll ever trust anyone again. But you will get through it, and on the other side, you'll be stronger, wiser, and more in tune with yourself than you ever were before. The people who betray you are counting on you falling apart. They're counting on you being too devastated to tell anyone, too ashamed to expose them, too broken to move on. Don't give them that satisfaction. Stand up. Tell your story. Let their own actions speak for themselves. And then walk away with your head held high. You know what's funny? That nickname, the most gullible person, was supposed to be an insult. It was supposed to make me feel small and stupid. But now, when I think about it, I just feel sorry for Jake. Because you know what I was? I was the most trusting, the most loving, the most loyal, the most willing to see the best in people. And Jake took all of those beautiful qualities and tried to turn them into weaknesses. He tried to make me feel bad for being a good person. But those qualities aren't weaknesses. They're strengths. And the fact that he couldn't see that, the fact that he had to mock them and exploit them, just proves that he was never worthy of them in the first place. So yeah, maybe I was the most gullible. Or maybe I was just the most human. The most willing to believe in love. The most invested in our relationship. And he was the most cowardly. The most dishonest. The most pathetic person who needed to tear down someone who loved him just to feel powerful. I win. Because I'm still me. I still believe in love. I still trust people. I still see the best in the world. And he's still whoever he was, someone so insecure and empty inside that he needed to have 2 relationships at once just to feel whole. If you're going through something similar, if you've discovered that someone you loved has betrayed you, if you've found messages or evidence that shatters your world, I want you to know something. This is not the end of your story. This is just the end of a chapter. And the next chapter? It's going to be so much better than you can possibly imagine right now. Take your time to heal. Go to therapy. Cry when you need to cry. Scream when you need to scream. Block their numbers. Delete their photos. Burn their letters if you have to. Do whatever you need to do to process this and move forward. But don't let their betrayal change who you are at your core. Don't let it make you bitter or cynical or afraid to love again. Don't let it convince you that you were foolish for trusting, or stupid for believing, or weak for loving. You were none of those things. You were brave, and you still are. The person who betrayed, you will have to live with what they did for the rest of their life. They'll have to look in the mirror every day knowing they're capable of that kind of cruelty. But you get to move forward knowing that even when someone tried to break you, you refused to break. Even when someone tried to make you feel small, you stood tall. Even when someone called you the most something insulting, you proved you were the most resilient person they'd ever meet. And that's your power. That's your revenge. That's your victory. So to Jake and Maya, wherever you are, thank you. Thank you for showing me who you really were. Thank you for freeing me from a relationship that was built on lies. Thank you for teaching me to trust my instincts. And thank you for giving me one hell of a story to tell. To everyone else who's been betrayed, who's been lied to, who's been called names behind their back by people who claim to love them, you're not alone. Your feelings are valid. Your pain is real. But your future is bright. Brighter than it ever could have been with people who didn't deserve you. And if someone ever tries to make you feel the most anything negative again, remember this. You're the most deserving of honesty, loyalty, and real love. Don't settle for anything less. This was my story. The story of how my boyfriend was secretly dating my best friend, and how he called me the most gullible person behind my back. But it's also the story of how I survived, how I thrived, and how I proved that the only thing I was really the most of was unbreakable. Thanks for listening.